Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Leung. I am the program manager for New York City Emergency Management. For the Ready New York program at New York City Emergency Management. Today, we are doing our winter weather preparedness webinar. We have two amazing speakers. We have Ed Powell and Matt Pavogo. And Matt, Ed, please take away. Thank you for joining with us.
Thank you, Kevin. This is Ed, and I just want to welcome everyone to this presentation. And just a quick bit of housekeeping, we would advise you, if possible, to grab a pen and paper. You might want to jot down some notes, and you also might want to pose some questions at the end of the presentations. We're going to have a Q&A period. If you want to put your questions in the chat, feel free to do so, or you can pose your questions at the end of the presentation. This is the New York City Emergency Management Winter Preparedness presentation. As you know, we're going into winter, although we've had some warm days, but you can count on it getting cold and us having some kind of precipitation. So it's important that we prepare at this time. I'm going to ask my colleague to just speak with you for a moment and sort of introduce the agency and talk to you about who we are and what we do. Matt Pavogo.
Thanks, Ed. So to what I talked about specifically, yes, I'm going to talk about our agency and what we do. So New York City Emergency Management, we help New Yorkers prepare before, during, and after emergencies, specifically through preparedness, education, and response. New York City Emergency Management, our agency, coordinates citywide planning and response to all types and scales of emergencies. There are over 200 dedicated staff that are part of the agency that have diverse backgrounds and expertise, and we also have staff included from other city agencies. As far as education, New York City Emergency Management, one of our biggest tasks is to educate the public about being prepared for emergencies. One of our main campaigns, the Ready New York campaign, is to educate all New Yorkers about the hazards that they may face, and we also encourage them to make a plan to be prepared for all emergencies. There are over 1,200 CERT or Community Emergency Response Team volunteers within our agency, and they are trained in basic response, such as light search and rescue, fire safety, disaster medical operations, and also traffic control. CERT volunteers in their community assist through education and response. Our community preparedness program brings together local leaders to promote grassroots preparedness and volunteerism. And finally, our Partners in Preparedness program prepares organizations for their staff, services, and facilities in relation to all types of emergencies. So Ed's going to talk next about being prepared. Ed, are you still there?
Sorry, Matt. Sorry, folks.
Okay.
I was muted. Yeah, it's my pleasure now to talk a bit about my emergency plan, our most popular booklet that we distribute. It's free of charge to the public, and it's available online at nyc.gov/ready, READY, NY. That's nyc.gov/ready, READY, and you can download this booklet. It is this booklet allows you to make your own emergency plan to plan how you're going to prepare yourself for any upcoming emergencies. As I said, you can download it there, or you can request the hard copy version of it by going to nyc.gov/readyny, and there you'll find a way to order it and have it delivered to you, have it mailed to you. Personal emergency preparedness, there are 3 basic steps to preparing for all kinds of emergencies. Step number 1 is making a plan. Having a plan in place before the emergency happens. Step number 2 is to gather supplies, to get and keep those supplies on hand that you're going to need in order to sustain yourself through emergencies. And step number 3 is to get and stay informed, to make yourself aware of all the resources that are available to you, and there are many. You've made the first step by joining in to this preparedness presentation today. So this is one way that you're going to keep yourself informed. Now, Matt is going to talk to us a bit about winter weather and the serious hazards that it can pose. Matt?
Thanks, Ed. So as I mentioned, serious hazards can occur during winter weather. And recently, about 2 years ago, there was a winter weather emergency where there were snow squalls that struck the city, which caught many New Yorkers off guard. So some of the hazards that can occur include such as utility disruptions, transit disruptions, closed schools, downed trees, health risks, and flooding. So these are some of the hazards that can occur during winter weather. So it's really important to be prepared for the worst, to have all these things in mind that they can happen. So taking the steps beforehand, like Ed mentioned, making a plan, gathering supplies, and staying informed, having all those things beforehand so you can be prepared for these hazards. Now, during winter weather, it's really important to listen to the news, obviously, but for New York City Emergency Management, they will inform New Yorkers that when they should shelter in place and also to heed travel bans. So these are the couple of things that the agency will inform New Yorkers during winter weather. In addition, it's also really important to note that infants, seniors, and those who suffer from paralysis or neuropathy are going to be mostly impacted. They're most prone to hypothermia and frostbite. You should check on neighbors, relatives, and friends who may need additional assistance to make sure that they are adequately protected from the cold. Community members who identify those on the street that may need assistance should call 311 and request the Mobile Outreach Response Team. By requesting this, Department of Homeless Services outreach representatives will check out the individual who needs assistance, and they will determine how to proceed and also what action to take. If you suspect someone who's suffering from hypothermia or frostbite, it's important to get them inside into the warm and also to seek out medical attention as quickly as possible or call 911. In addition to that, there are some other tips that you should be aware of for winter weather, during winter weather specifically, and that is to understand that, be aware that ice may fall from buildings. Also that strollers and also medical devices, in order for them to cross streets, it is important to clear curb cuts. In addition, it's really important to keep 3 feet of ice or snow free from fire hydrants. Also, if you're shoveling, it's important to take frequent breaks. And if you're not feeling well, you should stop shoveling. Finally, if your vehicle has snow on it, you should clear the tailpipe. So next, Ed is going to talk about winter preparedness.
Thank you, Matt. It's so important don't forget, we're still talking about preparing ourselves to get through the winter safely. And it's important to stay informed, to sign up for the free emergency alerts from Notify NYC. Notify NYC is the city's free notification program for all New Yorkers. There's an app that you can put on your phone, and we're going to talk about that later, or you can just call 311 and say, I'd like to sign up for Notify NYC. But again, we'll talk about that a bit later. You can also follow us, that is NYC Emergency Management, on social media. You can visit NYC Emergency Management's website and the NYC Severe Weather website for tips on how to prepare and to take action. Of course, you can check for official announcements on TV and radio and on the internet relating to city services. And of course, you're going to want to keep extra supplies at home and at work and in your car. Now, a bit about snow removal. New York City agencies will remove snow accumulations in the following areas. New York City Sanitation, Department of Sanitation will remove snow from streets and crosswalks and bus stops that don't have shelters. The Parks Department will remove snow from sidewalks and crosswalks near and around and in parks. Department of Transportation will remove snow on bridges and overpasses. And J.C. Decole, a franchisee of the Department of Transportation, will remove snow from bus shelters. The Metropolitan Transit Authority will remove snow from entrances to subways. So Matt, you could take it from here. Matt's going to talk about making a plan.
So as Ed mentioned before, the 3 steps, the My Emergency Plan, which is the main guide that our office uses for presentations throughout the city. The 3 sections are making a plan again, gathering supplies, and staying informed. So within the first section, making a plan, this is one way that the start of how you can be prepared by developing a plan, and specifically for all emergencies, but definitely for winter weather. So on page 5 of the My Emergency Plan, it talks about creating support networks. Specifically, a support network is a group of individuals that you can rely on during an emergency. So this support network is determined by the individual. So individuals that can be included would be relatives, neighbors, friends, co-workers, could be support organizations if you do not have contacts or support in the area, and also home attendants. So it's really up to the person of who they want to include and knowing that they can rely on them during an emergency. It's people that you know you can trust and you know how they interact with you and also during an emergency, if they're able to stay calm, specifically someone that you know you can rely on again. So some reasons why having support network, it's really a network that you can reach out to, say if you need to evacuate. And this is really going to all be talked about before an emergency. So going through the support network, going through with them your plan, specifically how are you going to evacuate, having all those things in place, medical information. So having all these things, especially if you have a disability, access, or functional need, or if you're a senior or older adult, taking those things into consideration and knowing what your needs are when an emergency may happen. Also in the My Emergency Plan, there is a section where you can write your medical information. So it's important to write down critical medical information, such as prescriptions, dosages when you take certain types of medication, and also other critical medical information such as your blood type. Also, if you're allergic to any medications, having all of that written down. And also if you're using any durable medical equipment, including that also. So it's really key to do that because a lot of the times during emergencies, we may forget information. In addition to those two topics, in addition to that, communication is really important. It's key to being prepared during an emergency. So communication specifically, we always recommend having at least 2 contacts, but really you should have more than that as a backup. In case if you reach out to those first 2 contacts and they're not available, it's always good to have those backup contacts, but at least have 2. In addition to that, you should have an out-of-state contact because if there is no communication in the area, one way you could do is you could contact another individual from, say, Florida or Texas, and then they can relay information to your contacts so they're aware that you are safe and everything is okay during the emergency. So that's one way, having a communication plan. Also during emergencies too, it's important to have the communication so you know how you're going to communicate with first responders. So if someone is deaf or hard of hearing, they may communicate differently during an emergency. So for them, they may have to have communication boards or maybe pen and paper enabled to communicate. And for someone who is blind, they're going to have to tell first responders how they should be guided and specifically where they're being taken. So that should be communicated with the first responders. Also on page 10 of the My Emergency Plan, it talks about evacuation and transportation. So those 2 things, evacuation and transportation, go hand in hand. So it's really important to know when you may need to evacuate or if you have to shelter in place, if you need to stay or go. Those are the 2 things you need to keep in mind during an emergency. So for one emergency that you may need to evacuate, that could be a fire. Fires do occur during winter weather, so if there is a fire, you're going to need to know how quickly, where you're going to go, when, where, and how you're going to leave the incident of the emergency. For sheltering in place, that could be a blizzard, or winter weather, where you're not able to get out of your building or home. So that's one type of emergency where you need to shelter in place. Again, having an evacuation plan in place beforehand is really important, having it planned out. And also for transportation may be shut down. If there is a blizzard, it could be shut down before that occurs. So it's important to have a backup plan for transportation. And there is a location in the My Emergency Plan where you can write that down. You can write down the original routes that you take, but then what's your backup plan going to be? That's the most important thing to think about. So transportation in mind, also with shelters and service centers, if you do have to leave because of a fire, we do work with the Red Cross, and that might be an incident where shelters and service centers may come into play. So next, Ed is going to talk about gathering supplies.
Thank you, Matt. Well, I'm gonna. Well, I wonder if everyone here who's online now knows what a go bag is. I suspect that most people do, because a go bag is any kind of good, strong, durable bag that you can put emergency supplies into for a time when you'll have to evacuate from your home. And everyone should have their own go bag. Each person in your home, because one is not going to suffice for everybody. It should be stored in an area near your exit door so that when it's time to leave, you grab your go bag and you keep moving. Some of the items that you're going to want to keep and store in your go bag are things like a first aid kit, your important documents and papers and ID. You will make copies of those and put those in your go bag in a plastic Ziploc bag. You'll want to put some money in there, some bills, nothing more than a 20s and under. You can put a copy of the My Emergency Plan booklet in your go bag as well. This is COVID-19 time. We're still in the middle of the pandemic, so be certain to put some hand sanitizer and face coverings inside your go bag. You'll include a flashlight with extra batteries, a whistle, some food. And by food, I don't mean, a big pot of food. I'm talking about something lightweight and nutritious, like granola bars, things like that. You want to also include a small a radio, battery operated or wind up or solar powered, whichever you prefer, but a small radio so that you can keep in touch with the outside. There will be times when, instead of being asked to evacuate from your home by the authorities, you'll be asked to remain inside. And some emergencies, like winter storms, for example, or even heat waves, you might have to stay in your home. And an emergency supply kit is what you're going to need to have. That is supplies that you store in your home, where you'll have enough of each to last you for up to 7 days. You'll want to include some water, and there's a formula for the amount of water you're going to store. It will be 1 gallon per person per day. Some non-perishables like canned food, some manual can opener, first aid kit, medications, and so forth. All of this is listed in my emergency plan. So just be sure to go online and download the plan or order it and have it delivered to you. On page, I think it's page 15 of the plan, it refers to specific winter weather supplies needed, like blankets, sleeping bags, extra newspapers for insulation, extra clothing for the cold. So again, be sure and get hold of the My Emergency Plan booklet so that you can make your own plan. There are sections in the booklet for you to write down your own personal information so that you can make your own emergency plan before that emergency happens. Now, I'm going to ask Matt to talk with us just a bit about the third step to preparing for emergencies, which is staying informed.
Thanks, Ed. So the first 2 steps that we've talked about that are in the My Emergency Plan include making a plan and gathering supplies. And the third section is staying informed. So within staying informed, some of the resources that our office has for staying informed include Notify NYC, which Ed talked about before. And again, it is a free alert program that New York City Emergency Management has, where individuals can sign up for free through 301, through our website, nyc.gov/emergency management, and also now through a free app that we have called Notify NYC. So this provides either text messages, emails, or voicemails to someone's phone number, a landline, where it can provide emergency alerts such as small things such as the transit is shut down, to larger emergencies that a winter weather incident is going to be occurring, and which it would also provide some of the tips that we talked about today within those alerts. So specifically, the alerts are in multiple languages and also are accessible for people who are deaf and hard of hearing. The messages are in American Sign Language and are also accessible for people who are blind and low vision, which there is voiceover for those messages. So that is one of our programs for emergency alerts. In addition, we have the Advanced Warning System, which that's for organizations that work with people who have disabilities, access, and functional needs. So it's a way that they can alert their individuals within the organization of what is occurring as far as emergencies. In addition to that, New York City Emergency Management has a community preparedness newsletter, which provides alerts about emergency preparedness events and information weekly. And also we have the Ready NYC app also, which is free on Apple and Android. In relation to the My Emergency Plan, the app is very similar to that, where one can write out their contacts within their communication plan, meeting places, which is where people meet if there is an emergency. In addition to that, also having The supplies, like Ed talked about, so putting a checklist together, that is within the app, and also additional information such as people who need to sign up for life-sustaining equipment as far as them being customers. So all that information is in the app, and it is free of charge, and it is also accessible for people who are blind and low vision and people with disabilities. So that's the Ready NYC app. Ready NYC in general, we have guides like the My Emergency Plan, we have a Pets Preparedness Guide, and we have additional guides for children and all New Yorkers that prepares them in 13 different languages and also in audio format. And that could be accessed through our website, the audio format, and also the accessible PDFs for the guides. And that's nyc.gov/emergency management or nyc.gov/readyny. Finally, there is also on our website the severe winter weather website that you can visit during winter weather. And also there's the Plow Now NYC portion of our website you can go to check if your streets have been plowed. So Ed's going to talk next about flu shots.
Thank you, Matt. Yeah, this is flu season, and it's the pandemic here, all in one shot, and this is a very difficult time, and people have questions about, should I take the flu shot or should I not? What should I do regarding COVID? But by all means, take the flu shot, get the flu vaccine. That's very important. And for more information on the flu vaccine and where it's available, visit the website nyc.gov/FLU, or you can text FLU to 877-877. And I'm going to mention that again, but let's just talk about COVID testing. For people who are able to see what's on the screen right now, there's a link here to getting information about the COVID test. So another way of getting that same information is by texting COVID or COVID test, TEST, to 855-48. That's 855-48. Now, there are precautions that we all need to take right now to kind of protect ourselves. So many people have gotten sick and worse. So it's crucially important that we observe the proper hygiene, that we use face coverings, and that we practice social distancing. During this flu season, it may be hard to tell the difference between flu and COVID-19. Testing can help determine if you're sick with the flu or if you're sick with the pandemic. The best way to protect yourself from the flu is to get a flu vaccine. For more information, again, or to find a location to get your flu vaccine, you can visit nyc.gov/FLU, or you can even call 311, or you can text FLU to 877-877. The COVID-19 precautions are still in place. Remember to use the proper hygiene, washing your hands for 30 seconds with soap. Use the appropriate face coverings and practice social distancing. Crucially important, please remember that. And I just have to repeat again, using the proper hygiene, in other words, washing hands for 30 seconds with soap. Use the appropriate face coverings and practice social distancing. Now we're going to turn to questions at this point. So at this time, I'm going to ask Kevin Lung to come on, and he will direct the questions. And Kevin, are you there?
Hey, Ed. Yes, I'm here. Thank you so much, Ed, and thank you so much, Matt, for the presentation. It was great information, and again, thank you so much for sharing. So right now we will open up the floor for some questions. And if you guys have any questions, please just either type it in the Q&A, or you can also type it in chat if you want to, and then we will answer them as they show up. And we'll give you guys a few minutes to think of some, and if not, we will
Audio
have a
now.
presentation.
Alert exclaim.
Kevin, can you unmute everyone at this point in case people might need to just verbally ask, questions rather than put them in the chat?
If you do have a question to ask verbally, please raise your hand. Just because so we can have everyone on the same page. Audrey Cohen just asked, is there emergency management in every county, such as Ulster in New York? There is an emergency management, but sometimes it is put together with either the police department or with other aspects of that county's government administration. For New York City, we are a little bit special because we are our own department here in the city. So we basically have an entire team, over 200 professionals, to really focus on emergency planning. And sometimes where there is a county, they either have a smaller team or that team is part of another department. So there definitely is. It's just that I'm not too sure outside of New York City, unfortunately. This is Patricia from Councilmember Chin's office. The emergency plan booklet comes in all languages, particularly Spanish and Chinese. I can answer that. Yes, Patricia, all our plans come in Spanish and Chinese. Also, we have 13 languages that they come in. Some of the major languages: Spanish, Chinese, Russian, French, Korean, and a slew of other different languages that are available. We also have we have audio guides for people who are hard of hearing, and also we have a lot of videos online. So if you do have any requests for materials or booklets online, or if you want them to be mailed to you, please give us an email at readyny@oem.nyc.gov, and we'll work together. And we work with Councilmember Chin's office multiple times to get them the things that they need. Audrey Cohen just asked, what kind of radio is best? A wind-up, a battery, etc. So, Ed or Matt, would you want to answer that question?
Sure. It all depends on the person and circumstances. I can't say one is better than the other, except under certain circumstances. The wind-up radio is good pretty much any time. If you want solar-powered radios are good when you have sufficient light. The battery-operated radios are good, again, under same thing, under any circumstances, as long as the batteries last. The advantage of the wind-up radio over that is that, it doesn't require that you have batteries that that are going to last a long time or anything. You can always crank it by hand and provide the necessary current that way.
Awesome. Also, just to give everyone a heads up, this is not really. Yes, it is as part of emergency management, but also it's just a tweet from the mayor. The mayor also just said that that public school buildings will be closed as of tomorrow because New York City has reached 3% testing positivity after the 7-day average. I don't have any other information besides that. This is just really more of a FYI for you guys who are attending. So if you guys have any other things you have to take care of after this as well. But yeah, we will open up more questions if anyone have any, and we'll give people a couple more minutes to answer those questions. And in regards to the school closing and stuff, I just don't have any other information. This is just more for you guys to know that this just happened.
Well, again, Kevin, while we're waiting for more questions, this might be a good time in light of the mayor's announcement to emphasize, the numbers have started to go up again. We want to push those numbers back down. And the best way to do that is by observing the proper protocols and precautions, proper hygiene. Wash your hands for 30 seconds with soap. Use face coverings and practice social distancing.
Thanks, Ed. Yes, and Frank France just asked a question on is there advice of the use of kerosene heaters indoors? I can answer that. So the best way to heat your home, the fire department does have the proper ways and steps to really heat your home. If you have any type of questions like that, please refer to the FDNY website. We suggest that if you do have these type of heaters, please go through the fire department and see what their protocols are, what the best practices are to heat up your home. We know it does get cold, so please go to the fire department, and their website has all types of information that you can refer to, Frank. Another question is, can we schedule from an anonymous attendee, can we schedule for this presentation to be given to churches or other institutions in New York City? Yes. You may schedule these presentations for your community, for the group of people that you work with, for whomever really. And we are very personable to make sure that the presentation works for you and your community. You can just email us at readyny@oem.nyc.gov. To schedule a presentation. One of our coordinators will get back to you and we will work with you to see what you need, what languages you might need, and other services and things that you may need to make this presentation work for you. So yeah, it's very possible. Please give us an email and let us know. If you don't want to give us an email, you can also sign up online at nyc.gov/ready, READY-NY. And you'll be able to have a link there to really request a presentation, and we'll be able to get back to you as soon as possible to schedule everything with you. Audrey also just asked, how long do winter weather emergencies usually last? Ed or Matt, would you want to answer that?
Well, sure, I'll take that. Winter weather emergencies, that they last, it can last throughout the winter. It depends on, the type of season we're having. So the key, I think, is to be prepared throughout the winter. Use the information that you've heard and seen in this presentation today to prepare yourself for an entire winter season of winter weather.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And just for if possible, I would like to also talk a little bit about that as well. We've seen winter weather storms come for an hour or two and just go away. And for those couple of hours, even for like that evening, we might be facing a lot of issues, but the next day everything is kind of back to normal. But then we've also seen winter weather and snowstorms, say a few years ago. If you guys remember, that it lasted for a week, right? It just snowed constantly, and the highways were shut down basically because cars were abandoned on the road. So it really does depend. It really does depend. So for a specific winter weather emergency, it really can range from a few hours to a week. And we really suggest when we're talking about it to have the right supplies and be ready to shelter our home for about 7 days. And that's kind of what we tell people, is to just make sure that you want to be able to be safe and make sure that your family is properly secure and safe for about 7 days, and having the right supplies for about that time if you do have to shelter at home. So again, the emergencies, I can't tell you when the next emergency is going to happen, but we have seen ones for a few hours and we have seen one for a prolonged period of time. So please be prepared for anything. An anonymous attendee just also asked, can we have a copy of this presentation sent to the attendees today? Yes, so we will be able to send this presentation to whomever requested. We can also send a PDF for you guys. It might take a couple days for this video to be uploaded to YouTube, and you can view this and share this with you and your community as well. And once that happens, you can check on our website, or you can email us to get the YouTube link as well.